Good morning, it's Tony Dattino, and we have got another Monday live with Tony talking about things that I read during the weekend or during the start of the weekend, and talking about the impact that they have on our ability to communicate, our ability to create meaning and comprehension, and then obviously our ability to remember the things that we hear, the people we speak to, the conversations we have. And I started on Friday with the spring issue of Discover magazine, and I found a really interesting article in there on the struggle to survive. And when they talk about the struggle to survive, it says, why are some words more successful than others? And research reveals how words secure their spot in our vocabulary that we utilize from the time we're children, grow up through elementary school, to high school, to adulthood. And so words they talk about this as a biological species engaged in a struggle for existence. Now that's an interesting thing, the words we use. I'm terrified, I'm in panic, I'm scared, I'm afraid. I'm excited, I'm loving this, I'm enthused about what we're going to be doing, are the elements of how we then get comprehension into our brain. So as we hear and or read these words, and off we go in terms of comprehension. So it talks about some it takes earning the right to roll off the next generation of tongues, while others are consigned to the pages of going to a Webster dictionary, or words that we may just forget entirely. What sets the survivors apart, meaning the words that stay with us? The proceedings of the Academy of Science found that many successful English words have three crucial traits. So it's interesting to think about the words that we're speaking in our daily dialogue, the words we speak to our loved ones, be it our spouse or our children or friends, family members, moms and dads. They're acquired early in life. So that was interesting to see. As I read the article, they talk about the importance of the words as we begin to develop our early vocabularies. So they're acquired early in life, and they refer to something concrete, and they're emotionally arousing. So it's now when we say concrete, the word the, T-H-E, is not something concrete. But if you think of something like a refrigerator or a television, that's something you can visualize and grab an image of and actually see a TV or a refrigerator. Now, what's interesting about TVs, if you go off to any of the wholesale stores, you can see 40-inch TVs or you can see 100-inch TVs. So the whole image of a TV being concrete now begins to take on a whole new dimension as technology has advanced the word television to mean anything from a small little box that you used to have when, at least when I grew up, maybe you were lucky to get a 14-inch screen, to now you can get a 100-inch screen. And so live action jumps right into your living room. But back to our words, words have three crucial traits, right? We said in early life, they refer to something concrete, they're emotionally arousing, and they offer an opportunity to generate meaning and comprehension. So I'm searching in this article, and I have three crucial traits. I'm waiting to see what the third trait is here in this article, so I'm not finding it. They refer to something concrete, and they're emotionally arousing. So we'll stay with those two, because now in our memory competition, we consciously use abstract words in the list of 500 we give to the mental athletes, and they've got to work a little bit on taking the and the and the of, and they have to convert those in some way of imagery. And what we learned in the technique, the loci method, is imagery and concrete images help the mental athletes retain and remember, which then, reading this article, certainly says that. The authors looked at people to retell short stories. They ran a game of telephone where one person whispers something to the person next to them. We've all played the game of telephone, and we always have, in parties, you start with a word at the beginning, and by the time you get to the sixth person, the word that you started with very often does not match the word that you finish with. There's where our listening and our hearing and our ability to comprehend comes into play. As every 8-year-old knows, it's a lesson in the challenge of preserving a message across multiple retellings. With enough intervening speakers, the dog chews shoes transforms into which blog do you use? The dog chews shoes to which blog do you use? So again, as we're listening, it invokes our hearing and then the imagery we get. And so if we start with the dog and we can picture that dog and he's chewing on a bone or a steak bone or a biscuit or something he's grabbed out of the grass, and we can grab that imagery and we can pass that imagery down, we have a much better job of transforming it and retaining it in our memories than what eventually comes out. If we don't do that imagery, we now have a blog that you use. Certain patterns emerge from inconsistency, revealing which words are likely to make it through. The beauty of the approach from a scientist at the Indiana University is that it allows a transition of the original story to something that is more optimally suited to our own cognitive apparatus. So what he's basically saying there is we have our own cognitive listening that we get to, and as we hear words and we begin to process those words, a key word that we hear may mean 3 or 4 different things to somebody that we're listening to or talking with. So comprehension becomes critical. And my example of that is always using the word love, L-O-V-E, when I've got parents and kids working together. And I do a simple exercise. I have the parents and the kids get a piece of paper, right? Just a simple sheet of paper, nothing complicated, sheet of paper. Put the word love in the middle. You can draw a heart. You can spell the word L-O-V-E out. And now I give them 60 seconds to just tell me the first 6 thoughts, anywhere from 3 to 6 thoughts that you comprehend in your mind when you see or hear somebody say, I love you, or I read, we love this place. What are the first 3 to 6 thoughts that jump into your mind when you hear the word love? And it's always interesting to me as a parent and putting out their words of love and then comparing it to what their children interpret from the word love and how often they mismatch. So I see parents saying, but I love you, and the kids are processing, but no, you don't, because you're not doing the things that I interpret as the word love, and therefore you're not letting me go out and play, you're not letting me do video games, you're not letting me see my friends. And parents would say, yeah, but I'm doing these things because it's important for you to get your schooling done, it's important for you to have your dinner and get all your assignments done. These are things important to you, and we love for you to be able to get these. So it's always a very interesting conversation when you hear these words that we speak. And love is one of those, it's not one of those concrete words, but yet has such powerful meaning to people that our ability to communicate in that process needs to be a little bit of what I call reconciliation, meaning, so what do you mean when you speak to me and tell me you love me versus what do you hear and interpret that to mean? And boy, have I seen, and even some of the work I've done with couples in pre-K now before getting married, having them define what that looks like to each of them and then getting them to reconcile that meaning. So it's a simple exercise and a word we use frequently, and yet it doesn't have what we call this concrete thing, but it certainly packs a significant amount of emotion to it. And so I just found this article significantly important in terms of the characteristics of words we speak and the emotions we attach, and then last but not least, the historical bringing it has. Meaning, I've heard this word spoke when I was 10 years old, when I was 16 years old, when I was 25 years old. And has that meaning changed over a period of time? Has your definition of it opened up a little bit broader? And then how does it impact your memory, your recall? How does it engage in your senses and how you might feel, and what emotional charge do you pack to the words that we hear, that we then, as this article says, we keep them through the generations, and we may not realize that some of the words we use, we got in our early childhood years, and they attach meaning to us that we carry forward, and we then expand our interpretation through life experiences. So I found it to be a very, very interesting article, and it certainly impacts our memory, and that shows up when we do our memory competition, and we watch how our mental athletes go through what we call a list of words and how they make interpretations. So that's my Live with Tony for Monday, and we're off and going to another week as we wrap up the month of April, and we'll see you back here on Wednesday.